Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Stewart. I am the CEO of Orefinders Resources, and I'm very pleased to be here today to explain to you very briefly our first drill hole on our Tiranite mine, our Knight project. More specifically, as I said, the Tiranite mine. We've got our first hole back, and we hit excellent mineralization in 2 zones, and I'm going to explain exactly what that means. First up, here's the forward-looking statement. We're in the exploration business. That's risky. Here is our asset portfolio. I want to point you towards our Knight property. Here is just about 100 kilometers west of Kirkland Lake. We are in the Abitibi. I'll point out a couple properties which Knight and the Tiranite, for clarity, the Tiranite is on the Knight property. We sit adjacent, just on top of the Juby deposit, which is a 4 million ounce deposit, and we're about 40 or 50 kilometers to the south of the Young-Davidson mine, which is owned by Alamos. I'll explain to you why I think that's very interesting in a bit. So this is where we are, talking about our Knight project, specifically the Tiranite mine, which was a former producing mine. Drilling down a little bit closer, this is our Knight project, and as you see, we have 4 different zones that within the Knight project, which we are drill testing in this approximately 10,000 meter drill campaign that we've been undergoing for the past few weeks. The first hole that we targeted was on our Tiranite mine, which is in and around this portion here, but we've got 3 other zones that we're going to be hitting. I'm not going to be talking about them on this webinar. This is solely focused on hole number 1, the only one we have, and on the Tiranite mine. This is just some infrastructure to set the table on the Tiranite mine. We're drilling right underneath this thing. This is the shaft. This is the hoist. There's a ramp on this property. This was in production on 2 separate occasions, most recently in the late 80s. And its current shaft goes down to around the 300 meter mark. And I'm going to show that a little bit more. So here it is. Here's our first hole. We just announced it on November 5th. We have 2 separate, distinct, significant mineralized zones. The first one, of course, is over 14 meters at 4 grams per ton gold. This was our intended target. Where this hole hit was 200 meters below the existing workings here. So this, as I said, the workings on this shaft went to 300 meters. We targeted 500 meters, and we hit this very wide zone. With 4 grams, pretty good. 14 meters, excellent. That's very wide zone. You need width in order for these deposits to be economic, to be mineable, to have 14 meters, or I should be more accurate, 11 meters true width. That is very significant, and it's even more significant because it exists underneath existing infrastructure, a shaft, so that makes getting to it a lot easier. But what also is interesting, that it can be inferred that considering this mine was mined to the 300 meter level, and we hit this zone 200 meters below, so at the 500 meter level, we can infer that potentially, or likely, that zone has continuity between the 300 and 500 meter level. That's significant. If we have widths like that over 200 meters, that's great. And of course, it's open at depth. Our next holes will be testing below hole number 1. Now, what I'd like to point out, and the whole reason for having this particular webinar is what I don't want to get missed, is that once we exited this intersection, okay, so once we got to the other side and poked out of this shear zone, targeted zone, we continued with that hole. We pushed it, as they say, and for another 60 or 70 meters, and then we encountered something completely new, completely unexpected. Over 9 meters, or true width 8 meters. We hit 2 grams per ton. Not huge grade, but again, very nice width. Why I think this is so interesting, for a few reasons. One is we consider it to be a brand new discovery. It was hosted the intersection, or the mineralization, is in what's called a syenitic intrusive body, completely different style of this shear zone. Okay, so we have 2 different styles of mineralization right beside each other. This syenite deposit, in fact, appears to be dipping towards the shear zone, which is interesting to us. But the gist is, this is a completely unexpected discovery. These syenite deposits are not known on the Knight project, or really to be mineralized in the Shining Tree. So the fact that it is mineralized opens up complexity and opens up potential on the Knight project. And one other thing I'll point out, and why I pointed out the Young-Davidson earlier, is that this kind of makes sense. If for those of you who are familiar with the Young-Davidson, which is a very large, in fact, it's Alamos's flagship mine. You got an 8,500 ton per day mill out of it. It's about 2.5 grams, but it's a big tonnage. And this is a syenite deposit. Okay, so that's why, to me, this is particularly interesting that on the second intersection of this single hole, we hit these syenites. It's mineralized. It looks just like the Young-Davidson mineralization. It's in the neighborhood, makes sense. As I said, now that we know that there are gold mineralized syenites on the Tiernite or the Knight project, this adds complexity and whole new angle to our exploration program. This is our section. So this is our depiction of the shaft. As you can see, it goes for about 300 meters here. This is a historic hole which hit 30 meters, similar grades, and that's not true width, right? That's sort of down dip. But this is the hole that we announced on November 5th, which is today. You can see here we hit 14 meters at 4 grams right here. So that, you know, the continuity, we know it comes all the way down here. This is the zone that it just really opened up. The second hole, which has been completed, but not we don't have no results, tests it another 200 meters. And then again, this is the syenite. This is how we depict the syenite mineralization right here. And we came and we hit it 9 meters over 2 grams. So that's the gist of the news release. I think, you know, emphasize two things. One is a very wide, pretty good grade zone underneath the shear zone style mineralization here. Opens up huge potential at depth. Who knows how deep this thing goes? And then, of course, we've got this new intersection here in syenites. Last point I'll make is where we are in terms of depth. These deposits in the Abitibi can go to 2.5 kilometers. Everybody knows the Macassa, it goes to almost 2.5 kilometers depth. The Tiernite mine, okay, before here, look, this is where it went to about 300 meters. This is where our hole went to. This is the #1 hole, excuse me. This has lots of potential. So if we can, and obviously we've got work to do to prove this, but these things are vertical and they tend to go deep, and they often can get richer and wider at depth. So this Tiernite mine is very interesting to us. We're just one hole into many holes. We've released 700 meters out of a nearly 10,000 meter program coming up. So stay tuned, lots more information to come. But I just wanted to put some clarity on this first hole. If you have any questions, here are my contacts. That email goes directly to me. Or if you feel like picking up the phone, I'll look forward to speaking to you. Thank you.